Good evening, guys. Welcome to the show. Welcome to I Want to Believe. And tonight I am riding solo. The lovely Kathy's unfortunately away on private issues, and Linda's also doing some Halloween events over in sunny Ontario. I hope you guys, your week has gone extremely well, and welcome to another show. So let's kick it off this week. Let's start with this week's guest. His name's Cody Turk, and he is with Turk Paranormal from San Antonio, Texas. And I'm going to bring him on the show so you guys can see him. Hey, Cody, how are you doing, buddy?
Good. How you doing tonight, Peter?
I'm good, sir. I'm good. Sorry, I should have corrected you. Corrected in relation to your title and exactly what you do. So, do you just want to tell the audience exactly a little bit about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. So, my daughter and I, we founded the Turk Paranormal Society about a year ago. It was mostly her pushing me to kind of dig back into the paranormal stuff again. I took a break for about 8 years because I had kids and work. And so, I didn't have any time for that. And we were talking about it one day, and she's like, well, you should really like get a group together, just start talking about it and get involved and, get like-minded people. And I said, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. And we just started a little group on Facebook, and then we went from like 10 members, like close friends and family, to like in a couple of months to about 150 people. And it was just really just people, aren't as, I guess, exposed to some of this paranormal stuff because not a lot of it comes, to the front page of newspapers. Or, of course, if you turn on the news, you're never going to hear this stuff. But so we got that going. And then I guess around April or May, I met Jack Kirby of the Paranormality Media Group. Him and Eric and Chaz of the Dead had started a magazine, and I believe they had ran 2 issues at the time, and they were looking for content providers because it was just the 3 of them, literally funding it themselves, writing all the articles, editing, and also doing the cover layout and management of the articles within the magazine. And if you've never done that work before, it's actually quite a big task to do between 3 guys. So Jack had reached out to me and asked if I wanted to do some content providing. And I said, yeah, I'd like to give it a shot. What do you got for me? And he was like, well, if you can take over duties on the podcast and get us some feature articles coming in, we'll definitely put them out there. So the first one I kind of sat shotgun and watched what he was doing. And I read all the magazines, listened to all the podcasts. And so I kind of started real simple with those guys and did a book review of Steve Stockton's latest book. Which I don't know if anybody knows Steve Stockton. I absolutely love his stuff. And then after that, I got like the main interview. And the first one I did starred Sapphire Sandalo of the show. She has her own show, Stories with Sapphire. And then she does the Paranormal Caught on Camera, which is featured on the Travel Channel, if a lot of people know what that is. So that was my very first one, and it was pretty nerve-wracking. But yeah, then after that, it's been great getting to talk to a lot of people. Never dreamed to talk to people like Sapphire, Ken Gerhardt, Sam Sheeran, Jason Hewlett. Just did an interview with Lady Ann Celine of the Caravan Library of Lore, who's a great contributor to the paranormal community. But yeah, that's kind of how we got all into it, and we just had our Paranormal Awards show this past Sunday, which was a pretty fun event. Though we did have some technical hiccups, it was quite enjoyable.
Awesome. So going back to your daughter prompting you into getting back into the field. I take it if she's like my daughter, she's got you wrapped around her little finger, and she's like, "Dad, we're gonna do this," and you're like, "Yes, dear, let's do it," kind of thing.
Yeah. So she pushed it, and she would tell her friends, "It's like, oh, my dad's got an app," and I'm like, "It's not an app; it's a Facebook group, and it's really not." It's like it doesn't really do much. And then next thing you know, we started. She's like, "Well, how's it going?" And I was like, "Well, I put up a couple posts, and some people really seem to like this stuff." And She's like, great. And I also try to make it like kid friendly because she's 8, so I don't want her going on there and having anybody with graphic comments or
Yeah, no,
putting up any random stuff. But yeah, got a lot of friends on there, made a lot of connections. I'm also doing that group. I ended up being one of the moderators for the Caravan Library of Lore group. So I basically do a lot of the postings on their group as well, for just whatever content. I don't know. I think I've always been pretty good at just digging up stuff that nobody else can find out there. This odd and unusual stories, and I just like to get that out there. Yeah, but yeah, she definitely pushed me into that, and I now have like a wall full of cryptid and Bigfoot stuff. I know I have people send me just all sorts of stuff, postcards from Lake Champlain. I got some other haunted hotel stuff that, yeah. After a while, people like they you start helping them out, and they'll send you stickers and all sorts of fun stuff. So
it's amazing how the paranormal takes over your life in more ways than one. It's what started as a kind of a hobby for me, basically materialized in me buying a house specifically for a sub basement, so I can turn it into a dungeon that is just paranormal related, so I can do all my podcast shows down there. So as soon as we walked into the house, I didn't see the rest of the house. It's like, yep, we're buying that house because. And she's like, "Well, why do you like it so much?" I said, "I just like it." And it was an old cold cellar, and I was like, "I'm going to flip it. I'm going to flip it into an office." And yeah, it's crazy. Most of my garage now is full of equipment, that kind of thing. But yeah, it definitely has a hold of you once you get onto it, kind of thing. It's kind of like an old curse kind of thing,
So you walked in the house and you saw a basement and you're like office, and your wife was like, this place doesn't have a bathroom, and
they're pretty
there,
much. We walk around and like it's beautiful upstairs. We got like oak beams and that kind of thing. But then we came downstairs and we were looking at the in-law suite downstairs, and they were like, "Oh, what does this door do?" And I opened it up, and there was a stairs going downstairs, and I'm like, it's a cellar. So I creeped down there, and it was dark. The lighting was dingy. There was an old freezer down there, and it was like, I'm going to turn this into my office, and that was it. And it was just like, we're going to buy this house. We're going to buy this house. We're going to buy this house, and that was it. And lo and behold, I got what I wanted, which makes a pleasant change. But anyway,
so is this your first house with the cellar?
No, it's actually. I grew up in an old 16th century house back in the UK, and we had it's quite common in the UK with older house to have a cellar and stuff like that, because it's that European thing where you used to store foods down there, that kind of thing, and it's a lot typical in mainland Europe, places like Italy and Spain. They use it as a cold cellar, that kind of thing. But no, I grew up with cellars, but they're very scarce out here. Like you have basement suites and that kind of thing, but you don't have cellars, if that makes sense. So it's no, it's good. It's good in that. It's good. It's a great place. So in relation to how did you? What started your intrigue into the field?
Well, here we go. The old way back machine, right? So, as a child, I was about 4 or 5, and we moved into our new house. We had a house built. I'm in San Antonio, which is pretty far south Texas, but I'm actually 2 hours further south than San Antonio. So, it was pretty deep south, and yeah, we moved into this house, and I had a bedroom with my brother, and my bed would face a hallway, like a long dark hall. And of course, I'm laying there and I can look directly at this hall. So it was a little daunting as a kid, but I would wake up at night and I would see a woman in a white dress with long black hair at the foot of my bed.
Jesus.
And she was kind of transparent, but I never felt threatened or scared. It was just kind of like, she was there. And so I've always kind of had an interest in, ghosts and apparitions and people's stories about apparitions, because I felt like I saw something, and I remember telling my parents, and they didn't really believe me. And it's kind of funny. It wasn't really until I was visiting from college when I was about 22 or 21, and my older brother was home, and we were up late having some drinks and talking about ghosts and stuff. And I told that story. I said, well, when I was about 4 or 5, I would see this woman, and it was several times that I saw her, but it was never threatening, and I never felt any malevolence. She looked very at peace being there. And then he said, well, because he actually had a room down the hall, and he said, well, around that same time when we moved in, he goes, I used to see a woman walk into my bedroom in the middle of the night, and she would turn left into the closet and disappear into the closet. And I was like, validation.
That's the key in that situation. Otherwise,
yeah, I was like,
you're gonna go completely mad.
Yeah, I was like, you see, Mom, I wasn't just a kid, and it wasn't just my imagination. There was something there. Yeah, and so that's kind of what got me going into it. So when I was a kid, anything in the books, movies, scary stories to tell in the dark. Phone calls from a stranger, I think, was another one. There's just so many out there that we would have book fairs, and me and my other brother, we would just buy all the ghost books that there were on the shelf, and that was it. And we would be in bunk beds at night, and he would read the stories out loud before we go to bed. Awesome. Of course, that would be like the worst thing, scaring each other, but it was great. Yeah, I know they were terrifying.
So obviously, once your brother acknowledged what was going on as well, how did your parents react then? Did they start to maybe believe you, or was it a kind of still a very taboo subject?
I think maybe they believed that we had saw something. I don't think it was as taboo. I think that I'm of the mind, and I'm not sure if they are, but I do believe that children kind of have more clarity or transparency to what might be on the other side. I guess they're the veil is a little thinner for them, I guess some would say. Yeah. So I'm not sure. We grew up pretty hardcore Catholic, so I don't know how much my parents really bought into that. But I mean, whenever it came down to it, it was like my brother and I definitely know what happened. Like we both saw the same thing. So it really wasn't what my parents thought about it at the time, but just for us to have our own validation.
It's that's paramount, especially in that when you're young as well. It's like I can testify to that, but I was fortunate when I was younger. My mum was very kind of much of the spiritual mind. Mm-hmm. And like I had experiences when I was younger as well, and it was just that it was that emotional cushion more than anything else, that what I was seeing was actually there, rather than the fact that I didn't think at that age when I started seeing things, I didn't think I was going mad, but it was good to have that kind of mentorship as well in relation to what I see and what I witness kind of thing as well. So that I think that's paramount as well.
Yeah, well, reading your book, you guys were you and your family living in that house. I remember, y'all had some kind of like a ball of light or like an orb that would travel.
Yeah, it's called Fred. We had a name for it, Fred, and it was basically the house sat on an area of England that used to back onto Henry VIII's summer vacation retreat place. And every morning, this house was built in the 16th, 17th century. Sorry, my brain's gone down on Friday. And it used to be like a cobblestone front, like a stone flint front. But because it was over a certain years, they basically put like a brick fascia on the front, so it protected the stone. And over in England, we protect things over 100 years old. They have like certain procedures of how to protect buildings, that kind of thing. But this house was used to be a direct path between a vicarage and a church, which was over the other side of the road, which used to be an old stream. And every morning at 7 o'clock, we'd sit at the breakfast table, and there'd be, because my dad worked like 24 hours a day, and I never saw him as a kid because he was always at work. But there'd be me, my mum, and my sister, and we had a dog there at the time as well. And every morning at 7 o'clock, you'd see this ball of light come through like at a high level, and it would just go through one wall and come out the other. And we got used to it. And the only way I could describe it was that it was kind of a three-dimensional car light that you'd see, where it'd be daylight, but you'd see this light come through and it'd just go through one wall. And we grew up with it. Like we accepted it. We called it Fred. It's like, oh, Fred's here and stuff like that. And like, until you get older and you start, you're reading, like I started reading books as well. And you suddenly realize, well, this isn't the norm. And then you suddenly realize that, that you get that skepticism and stuff like that out there. But I was, I had that mentorship when I was younger, where things that I was experiencing and seeing and that kind of thing, like my mum was there to kind of help me on that. But yeah, no, it was good. It was good. It definitely got me into what I did now, for sure. So there's a couple of guys. Sorry, I apologize. There's no user book. Facebook user. I don't know who you are, but yeah, good evening. And we've got that as well. My nephew. I don't know. Sorry, I don't know.
Oh, that might be for me.
Oh, okay. And then there's Kathy. Hi, Kathy. Good evening. Sorry you're not here. Kathy is a co-presenter of the show.
Hi, Kathy.
So yeah, so moving forward, so you've got you basically started a group, like a team as such, but your angle is more to do with the research and actual gathering of stories. Basically, primarily why we do what we do in the field, kind of thing. And so you're in the you're doing magazines. You're doing that magazine as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that in finer detail?
Yeah, absolutely. So the magazine, how we discussed before the show, and I'll discuss this now, is one of the goals of the magazine, and it's also a podcast as well, was whenever Jack was coming up with this, was he didn't want to do like another paranormal podcast, but he wanted a way to get paranormal podcast out and kind of front and center, because paranormal podcasts become very much buried in other subcategories of podcasts. Like they'll be buried in culture or society or pop culture. So if you're looking for a good paranormal podcast, and I actually had this trouble too whenever I was getting back into this, I was like, well, I want something that's got some good ghost stories. And I really couldn't find a whole lot of just kind of paranormal and ghost story podcasts. And you really kind of had to not only dig online, but you had to kind of listen to other podcasts, and then they would promote a podcast, and then you'd go over there and check that one out. And anybody that gets into podcasts like I do know that it's quite a devotion of time, because you want to know if you like the podcast or not. So a lot of times you have to sit there and listen to a couple episodes, which could be 2 hours.
No, I don't do that.
Yeah, and then you don't like it, and you're like, well, there goes 2 hours. I didn't even like this.
Yeah.
So what they did was they started doing a magazine about promoting podcasts, and then with the magazine they also did they would do their feature article, would then have a podcast episode about it. So and it's a way for not only to get paranormal podcast kind of front and center, so that anybody that wants to find a paranormal podcast can find it, but also to give the people that are fans of that podcast kind of an inside look to their favorite podcaster as well. So usually, like on ITF, where Shannon LeGros will interview all these great people, like I believe she's interviewed you and Jason on an episode.
Yeah.
And she always has just great guests, people that have had encounters like that. Well, of course, we did take the chance and reached out to her. She did give us a great live show on, one of these. It wasn't StreamYard. I'm trying to remember which one it was, but no, she did a great live show. They had a great article, and it's just really interesting to see what got these people into the field. You know, how come they got so interested in it? Because a lot of them are just like you and me, people that work full-time jobs, have wife, children, and we give what we can to our passion or our hobby, because we just like it so much, and we try to find like-minded people out there. So it is kind of a really neat way to get an inside look to what these people are creating and what they go through to get it done and to produce such a great product. So with the magazine, one thing we did to promote it was we had like a monthly poll. Like we have the Paranormal Top 25 podcast. So we started that, and they would, you know, every month people could go to the website and vote, and then we would put the results out in the magazine each month, which is kind of fun because, you know, I really don't think anybody's ever done that before. So People's Choice Awards actually does their own podcast award show, and like even for like the paranormal stuff, they had it under like Society or Best Foreign Talk Show, just really weird categories. So we actually had, you know, after 6 or 7 months of doing this voting, we actually had a yearly vote, and so we had, I believe, 13 categories. Because there's just so many that do so much out there. We had best paranormal horror podcast, where, you know, people tell horror stories. We had best comedy paranormal, best paranormal hosts show, or the best paranormal interview show, which I believe Shannon won that one.
Damn. Shannon is she's one of the, I'm going to use my words widely, she's a very beautiful symbol for the field, like in relation to the way she interviews and like what she does in relation to the field, like the books and stuff like that. She has a very persuasive nature in relation to saying to me that I should be writing books, to the fact that I actually write 2 books. So I guess it's the power of persuasion and her accent as well at the same time. It was just like, no, I'm busy, I'm tired, you know, I've got a 50-hour plus a week job and stuff like that, and no, you should really be writing books. And it's like, okay. But no, that's good. It's good to it's good to have that categorization as well, because there is a lot of shit out there, garbage out there, and in relation to self-promotion shows where they've got like celebrities doing podcast shows and stuff like that, where they talk about the same regurgitated stuff each week, but with, you know, like when as I explained to you earlier on, when I came away from Vancouver Paranormal Society and started more on this side of the fence, where I was doing things like Bigfoot hunting, and you know, we're starting UFO watching and that kind of thing as well. And then I get, you know, I write books, and I start, you know, I meet like new people in the field like yourself, you know, various other people like Shannon, that kind of thing. You suddenly realize that there is like such, you know, people out there that are, they're not experts, but you know, the people out there that know the field, like just by talking to them, just by the way that they're describing it, like the passion and the way that they analyze what they do. And it's all the way around, like people that are, you know, cryptology, UFOs, you know, us being ghost hunters, and, you know, me and Jason being ghost hunters primarily, that kind of thing as well. It's, you know, you can tell that it's their passion. Like they're you know, they're actual researchers, and they're a merit to the field, rather than the regurgitate stuff you see on TV, and which is then put onto podcast shows as well. Sorry, I went off into tangent there, but anyway.
But that's, you know, and that's exactly it. I mean, if you do look at stuff on TV, I find it, I'll tell you before the show, I find it very hard to watch like any kind of the paranormal investigation shows. The bigger ones out there, because they're just they have such a narrative to it. I mean, they invent a storyline. You know, of course, there's a history to most of these places that get investigated, but then they kind of manipulate the history into like a narrative that they do while they're out there doing their paranormal investigation. When, you know, I'm like, well, do you really know that that's the person that you're talking to, or, you know, are you sure? Because it could be anything. I mean, we really don't know, and
we don't know who we're talking to, and that's the thing. And you get that response with a possible name, and you're putting 2 and 2 together, and you're making 10. But essentially, because you don't know who you're talking to, and and you don't know where it's coming from as well. But we know it's there, and and I guess realistically, we never will find out until we get to that other side.
That's right.
And essentially, would it be, would we know then? We don't know. So it's anyway. That's I guess that's a campfire kind of conversation more than anything else.
Yeah. So as the magazine's kind of grown and matured, we still are very much focused on the podcast content providers, but we've also steered our way into trying to bring up some other people in the paranormal community, like artists. If you've seen our last couple of issues, the Halloween issue featured artist Sam Sheeran, who does a lot of great, oh my gosh, cover art. He does a lot for Beyond the Fray Publishing, your group.
Yep. Yeah, no, he did. I think he did the cover of our recent book as well.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Yeah, he did that. He's also with Small Town Monsters. I believe he did, 13 of their documentary covers. He's done work for, goodness gracious, Rob Zombie, Iron Maiden, a whole lot of bands. I know he's doing a series with David Weatherly, who's doing who does a lot of work with cryptids.
Yep.
We thought, well, this guy right here he's doing all this work, and I didn't realize, like, I have his artwork like everywhere, and I didn't even realize it. And I was talking to him one day, and I was like, "Oh, you did that?" I was like, I have that sticker on my cup right now. That's you. And he's like, yeah, I did that. And I'm like, it's like, oh my gosh. I was like, so these are the type of people I thought that we need to kind of bring to the forefront, because obviously they're giving so much to the community. And as I told him, if you read the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, they would always have that picture of an illustration before you would start reading the story. Yeah. And I said, a lot of that like fueled your nightmare before you even got into the story itself. And it's the same thing like on the covers of the books. It's a lot of times what you have on the cover, you look at that, and that's already like a mental picture that you have in your mind going through the book already. So I was very appreciative of his time and his work on there. And now I think he's our art director now for the magazine. So he's in charge of designing all the covers and the layouts. The one that I Want to Believe, the interview with Jason Hewlett, that one we featured artist Brett Manning in that, and of course Sam drew that one as well. So it's been really neat. So now we're bringing out artists so people can see their work as well, and then we've also been reaching out to authors to get their input, because there's a lot of great paranormal authors out there. Ken Gerhard, who I believe.
Ken's awesome. I love Ken.
You and Jason have worked with Ken. He lives here in San Antonio, and Sam gave us an introduction. Next thing you know, I'm having a 2.5 hour lunch with Ken Gerhard, just talking about Bigfoot and everything cryptid, and it was a blast. Ken's probably like the nicest person that you'll ever meet, and just has such a passion and enthusiasm.
He does. I've never met him face to face because it's quite a long distance away. But
oh yeah.
Just by the, I've interviewed Ken's in our book, in our new book that got published last week. But I've interviewed and spoke to Ken a number of times on different interviews, and he's even been on this show as well. And you can just tell, with him, with the passion that he has and the enthusiasm he has, that there's only a handful of people that I know that have that, and he brings it to the table every time. You can tell because his eyes almost light up like Christmas trees when he's talking to you as well. Like that narration is phenomenal.
Oh yeah, and he just absolutely. I wish I had like that passion, or at least just like a quarter of that passion. Because when we were at lunch, I didn't know, you know, he was gonna show up, but you know, he shows up and he's got the black hat and everything.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh man, Ken Gerhard, he's officially here now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, do you ever venture out investigating at all? Have you been to any locations at all?
So I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat in that sense. I do have several little pieces of ghost hunting equipment, and we went to my brother got married in Italy, and they basically rented out a castle
Oh, lovely.
for a week.
Oh,
Yeah, so
Viva Las Vegas.
yeah, and so we went over there, and I was like, I'm gonna go buy a voice recorder and just kind of walk around this place. And of course, I don't speak Italian. I'm like speaking English, so
I know. It can be like Ghost Hunters International. Like you can talk in English and get an English response in a foreign castle that speaks foreign language.
yeah.
It works.
Yeah. So I didn't get much on there, but one thing I think the one thing we did get was I had bought a little digital camera, and we were all there's about I don't know about maybe 20 of us staying in this place, and of course we were having a good time drinking and stuff, and the music gets going and people are dancing and having a great time, and we're taking pictures. And I never really noticed anything in my pictures that I took, but my mom had a really nice Nikon camera she had bought for this trip, and she took a lot of pictures. And it was interesting that we were going through the pictures because she wanted me to take a look at them because she noticed something, that they're these little kind of like transparent. I don't like the word say orbs, but I guess I call them just orbs. I know people they don't like orbs, but what was interesting about it is that in where she was taking pictures, where there might be one or two people just standing around, there'd be maybe one or two orbs. But as the energy got going and the drinks were flowing and people were kind of getting a little looser and they're kind of moving around and they're singing along the songs, more and more of these little orbs would appear in the photos. And that's what I thought was very interesting. It just kind of seemed like as people's liveliness and activity got up, you would just start seeing more and more of these orbs. And I don't really have any explanation to it, except hers was the only one that caught it. And hers, of course, was like the better camera. But that's the only other thing I really noticed was that with activity, we saw more orbs. But as it died down, you would just see less. But I know a lot of you paranormal investigators like to dismiss orbs, and I really don't have heads or tails that ever say what those things are.
Yeah, it's a tough one with balls because essentially, if you're looking at it more of a if you're looking at it more of a kind of a skeptical lens, there's no way of proving that orb is paranormal. That if you call it on camera, unless you have a modified camera like mine that has a crystal lens instead of a glass lens, so then it doesn't reflect light or anything like that. So if you take pictures and you've got like an orb on there, and it's like, oh yeah, you can't really tell. So that's the tendency why people throw them out. But then there's a lot of hatred for orbs in relation to that because everyone's just like, yeah, no, it's dust. It must be dust and stuff like that. But essentially, we don't know unless you do continuous tests in that environment where, for example, if you're sitting on the couch, you just pat the couch a few times, take small shots, and that there's orbs there and stuff like that, and that kind of thing. But then I've been in situations before where I was investigating an old bar in the interior of BC, where I've actually physically seen a green orb with my own eyes, and I actually got pictures of it as well. So essentially, on that front, that it could very well be paranormal, but essentially it would more than likely be not. It would be dust or something like that, unless you saw it with your own eyes and you took pictures of it. And there are other people there. Then you can say, okay, this is not a dust. This isn't a piece of dust. This isn't lint or anything like that because it's been validated. It's we have witnesses and stuff like that. So that's generally that's my perspective anyway. But people just throw them out like they get very ignorant sometimes in relation to stuff like that, where they don't look outside the box and other things. They don't know how to, that kind of thing. But, sorry, good.
So, yeah. So I was going to say, so paranormal experience, or even researching. Whenever I was I must have been about 23 at the time, no, 22 or 23, and I had a temporary stay back at my parents' house while I was moving to different colleges, and I was staying in this room. It was our garage, but it got converted into a large bedroom because my parents ended up. It was 3 of us boys, and then 10 years later, when I was 10, my mom had another son, and so we had to add another bedroom to the house. So they converted this garage into this large bedroom, and so I was staying there, and I would have just all sorts of kind of weird things going on at night, to where I would start sleeping with the TV on. I used to not do that, and so then I started doing that because I would hear what would sound like conversation in the room, like people talking, but I couldn't make out what they were saying, and that was kind of freaky. So I would try to drown it out with the TV, and then I would fall asleep. And in the middle of the night, I don't know if you've ever been laying on a bed and someone's bumped the mattress.
Yeah.
And you can like feel it, the whole thing through the mattress. Well, it would feel like someone would kick the mattress, and it would wake me up. And but you would definitely feel it because I'd be dead asleep, and then I could feel like a jolt. And then I would always hear these voices. And one time I remember waking up and still hearing whatever it was talking, and I woke up and I heard like a female say, "I like it better when he's awake." And I didn't go back to sleep after that. I turned on the TV, I put on a movie.
That'd do it. Jesus.
And this is still a house that was pretty new, and I went, several years went by, and I was talking to my brothers later about that, and they were like, "Well, do you remember when we had that Ouija board?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, they're like, "Well, we got it to work. We had some weird stuff go on in that room." And that was kind of spooky. And I was like, "Well, did you ever have anything like what I'm describing?" Like, no. And I'm like, "Okay, well, I don't know, whatever y'all did with that thing, there's something still in that room." Because I don't know. I heard voices. And I said, "Well, what would y'all do with this thing?" And then they would just kind of, they're playing, just teenage boys, guess how much change I have in my pocket. And it would say like 6, 7. And then they would, pull the change out of their pocket, and they have 67 cents, stuff like that.
Crazy.
Yeah. And I guess my mom and my grandma found out that they had it, and they were forced to give it away. So they gave it away to a friend, and then the friend's parents found out he had it, and then it came back to us. It's one of those things. I forgot whatever happened to this thing.
It's not one of those stories where you set fire to it and it magically appeared again.
Yeah. No.
I've got one of those in my cupboard down there, where allegedly it was used a couple of times, and then there were a lot of things started happening in the house. So they blamed the board, and then they took it out of the back garden and set fire to it. And the next day it was there sitting on the porch and perfectly intact. Yeah. Sorry.
And you have it in your house?
I have it in there. I've actually got a collection of boards. Probably about 3/4 of them are donated from ex-clients and stuff like that. But I collect them for I actually like them. I think that they're some of them are very interesting, and I actually collect them as a hobby. Like, not because I do. You know, I play with the balls every night and stuff like that. I think they're kind of pretty as well. And yeah, I'm going to one day build a display down here of all the different balls. But I think I've got about 16 or 17 different varieties of spirit balls, and not just Ouija boards either, like different ones I've got. I've got one from India, and I've got one from I think, yeah, Malaysian spirit board as well, buried in there somewhere as well. So quite a vast number of them, collection kind of thing.
So what is, I mean, because you always kind of take the skeptical point of view on a lot of investigation. What are your thoughts with the Ouija board?
Well, when I started investigating way back then, the team I started up with were very spiritual and in relation to investigating. So they didn't they didn't have half the gadgets then to what they've got now anyway. But they were more kind of they used to use crystals and Ouija boards and stuff like that. But they had their own variations of spirit boards, and they okay, yeah, whoever that is, thanks. It comes up on Facebook when you're reading it on Facebook as subtitles. But yeah, no, I appreciate that. But yeah, no, they used like a variation of the Ouija board for when I used to investigate with them. I never, to be honest with you, I never saw anything that I would deem as paranormal, because I always had that kind of standoffish sense that what they were writing was actually driven by that person. And I've used a spirit board a number of times, and I've simulated in certain ways where, I've turned the lights off, I've used blindfolds, I've had someone spin the board around, so we've got no orientation whatsoever, and I've never had that pan chip move on its own. It's always been, you do the circle motion, that kind of thing, and you glide it, and then and it just glides, and then it just stops in a random place, and then there's never been any, you get the odd letter, but then none of it really makes sense. So I guess if I turn around and said that it's just a piece of cardboard and a bit of plastic, I'd be kind of a little bit ignorant, because you don't know, right? Like anything in that field whatsoever. But me personally, I've never experienced anything with spirit boards whatsoever. I think they're interesting, and there must be something behind it, because it's been a part of some cultures for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
Like even before the Parker brothers even putting a Ouija board together, spirit boards have been in. I think it originates from China, from like 2,000 years ago, and they were using that for. They were using that for contacting the dead back then, and it's just there's obviously something there in relation to it, and obviously Hollywood's taken their element out of it as well now, because now you have to say goodbye and say hello and stuff like that, which essentially you don't have to do that. It's a bit like the way I look at it being is, if it actually works, it's kind of the same process as an EVP session where you've got voice recording, you're asking questions, or you can do the same just by picking up the telephone, or me just talking as I'm talking now, kind of thing. I don't get that element where doors are opening where they say, oh, this has started to happen after and that started to happen, because I don't see any difference between a bit of cardboard and a bit of plastic to what we do as investigators, unless you're provoking, I guess. But but anyway.
So when that Ouija board was removed, the one that burned and then showed up, the next morning, and I guess you have it now. When it was removed from the house, was there any, did they say, oh well, the activities declined since that thing left? Or
so I get it, like in that case, and then there was a couple of other cases as well, not to that extent where they said that they set fire to it and stuff like that. When I get the boards, I do I do perform like a ceremony on the boards as well, like on my, because I had to do with my spiritual beliefs in relation to if there is anything attached to it and stuff like that. Just not to sense, because I don't believe that there's something going on with the board or anything like that. Not because I think that I'm going to open Satan's grotto when I start playing with it and stuff like that. But essentially, that's what I did at that time, because I felt it was the right thing to do for that board and bring it into my house, kind of like the methodology of saging and stuff like that. So yeah, in that regard, and it's just respectful for what the client went through as well, because obviously to the point where they reach out to you and say that there's a problem, regardless of whether it's a spirit board or anything like that, that it takes that. You have to be respectful about that, and you have to be respectful about their wishes. And when I took that board away, and I took the other two spirit boards that come to mind, which were also in there as well, it did get rid of the activity there. So whether it was them actually thinking it was to do with the boards, or whether once the board left the house, the activity stopped, we don't know. But it's I did the right thing when I took it off them, and it's not doing a John Zavis where he goes around. Oh, that's a nice gold vase. That's haunted. What do you want to do with it? I'll tell you what, I'll take it away and put it in my museum.
I was going to ask you about that. I saw the doll in the background. I was like, what would be your idea of these haunted collectors like Zach and John Zaffis and the Warrens, how they always collected these cursed items? I mean,
I believe, like in regard to haunted objects and stuff like that, I believe in the theory behind it. Like I believe in like energy transfer and stuff like that. I also believe that there may be some objects out there that could be haunted, or that active, that have some kind of spiritual attachment in some way, residual attachment. But I don't believe everything is haunted, and I'm very, very skeptical about that. Like we had a show for We Want to Believe with haunted objects in my house, like the house I've just moved in now. And there was like the ashes of a murderer that we had as well, and we're doing things with that. And there was haunted dolls there that had like the story behind it, and there was we did the scrying. I did scrying in the basement down here with an old with a mirror that came from reclaimed wood in India, and nothing really came of it. And again, it's not me being naive, but I think that the popularity of haunted objects has gone up through the roof since TV, and that's it. Like before, you wouldn't get haunted objects as frequent as what you're getting now. There wouldn't be, Fred the doll or Mandy the doll or anything like that. Like when I started in the field, and there was nothing like that in England. Like there was, areas were active, and there was an association with objects as well, but not to the extent now.
Oh yeah, those movies come out and everything. Every doll's haunted. Every doll's got something's living in it. Annabelle, Robert the Doll.
Yeah, we got one in BC. It's called Mandy the Doll, and it's actually been on a famous American TV show where they brought her on, and we went in there, and the first thing I do is when I get to places like that, I interview the staff. Like I have to know, what's going on, that kind of thing. So I speak to the manager that's there, and I was like, okay, like all the bullshit out of the way. What have you witnessed here? And she said, nothing whatsoever. And I was like, okay, so you go in there and there's a story by the side of Mandy the Doll of things that have happened and stuff like that. And it's just like, okay. So then I go and talk to another member of staff that's been sitting on the front desk for about 25 years since the museum got reopened. Have you ever experienced anything with Mandy the Doll? No, not really. No. It's been kind of quiet.
They're kind of quiet.
so it's that to that extent. So we have a question, and I apologize again. The Facebook hasn't come up with a name or anything like that. Do you sense when spirits are attached to an object? I don't know if that's pointed to you or me. So I guess I'm going to ask you, Cody. Do you ever get like a sixth sense in relation to things like that?
If I ever had a sixth sense, it would never really be with an object. But but maybe like an environment change. I've been in some old places where you just get that feeling your hair starts to stand up on your arm or in the back of your neck. If it's a spirit or not, I don't know, but you do go into a place and you might not feel anything, but sometimes you just feel like something's off.
It's that EBGBs kind of feeling. And
Yeah.
I generally I don't really try and open myself up to objects that much or anything like that. But when you go into like antique stores, there is, when you go in there, and I don't know whether it's the fact because you see old crap everywhere, you get that there's that change of environment when you go in there. It's not, I don't feel like, oh, there's a negative energy in here or anything like that, but I sometimes get that kind of, you're walking into your great grandmother's closet or something like that, because it has that kind of feeling to it of heritage and has that kind of feel to it. But generally with me, like, it's the same as you. Like, if I'm in certain environments, it's that kind of sixth sense where you know what, I shouldn't, perhaps I shouldn't be here, and I get a lot of that with people as well when I meet people for the first time. Like, the very first time I meet people, regardless if I shake their hands, back in the day when you were actually allowed to shake hands with people, I get that feeling that this guy or that woman is wrong. Like, there's something wrong with them, not mentally or anything like that, but like, there's that element of distrust. And I always self-guess myself in relation to that, and it ends up shooting me in the foot in the long-term kind of thing. Because it's that gut feeling, I guess, more than anything else.
So yeah, I guess antiques. And that's funny because there's a town called Buda about an hour or so away from here, and it's got an antique mall. And I think last I read, they have to play music at night whenever when the shop is closed, because things won't be in the right place the next day. Stuff will move around, and so that's what they do. They will leave the radio playing. I think it's like old timey music too, like from early 20th century music that they play for it, and then everything will just kind of be at peace inside the store.
Did they get more people going in there now because they advertise that?
I don't know if they're advertising that. Yeah, but that's something I've read. But I guess one story I can tell, kind of pushing me into this direction of getting back into the paranormal, was my oldest daughter when she was around the age of 4, and she was just starting to, that's the age that they can, 2 to 3, they're starting to say words, but they're just saying words to get what they want. And then when they're, around 4, they're actually kind of putting whole sentences together and actually starting to maybe have a little bit of a conversation with you. And my oldest daughter came up to me one day and was telling me about this friend she met. And she said, well, this is my friend, her name is Alexi. And you say it Alexi, like galaxy, not Alexi, but yeah. Alexi. And I was like, oh, is she at your preschool? She goes, oh, no, she don't go to school. I was like, oh, okay, well, and I'm like, well, where do you know her from? She's like, well, I've seen her. She says she was in a real bad car accident, and she's covered in blood.
Jesus.
And yeah, she's my friend. And I was like, and I looked at my wife, and my wife was like, don't say anything. And I was like, well, I'm not going to deny what she experienced or what she just told me, because at 4 I hadn't shown her anything. She just was watching Busy Beavers all the time, and a little alphabet show. But for that to come out of her at the age of 4 was definitely something that was intriguing. And I never told her that it didn't happen. And I've asked her about it today, and she doesn't remember telling me that.
Yeah.
That was something that was very, very interesting for a 4-year-old to say. Yeah, and this Facebook user has a question: Do you guys believe young babies and children see stuff that we don't see? I am a firm believer, from the story I was just telling, that my daughter at that age, I think the veil was a bit thin for her. She would tell me around the age of 5 and 6. She said, I'd go in there and wake her up for school, and she goes, "You're back in here again," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "Well, weren't you just in here pinching my knees?" And I was like, "No, I wasn't pinching your knees." And she'd also tell me that she would hear people talking in the bedroom. But she, now she's 8 and doesn't really say anything like that anymore. But that definitely had opened up my mind and kind of reminded me whenever I had my childhood experience that, yeah, maybe there is something about being younger and your mind maybe being more open to this kind of stuff.
I believe that as well. I think that when you're born in this world, you're born with a conscious mind, with conscious eyes, and you see things that are actually there. And when you get to a certain age, your brain, not your brain, but the society you're in teaches you to start using your subconscious mind when you're focusing on things, if that makes sense. And you lose that over years, and that kind of goes away. But some people don't lose that; that stays with them, and whether they can pick it up their pocket every now and again, and use it and put it back in their pocket, or some have that ability to use it all the time. But also on the same note, I think that animals are very susceptible to environments, that kind of environment as well. I've had a number of cases over the years where you go into an investigation and it's kind of this has been going on and that's been going on, and we turn around and I say, well, what about your pet? What has your cat or your dog been doing? Well, the dog's actually been looking over in the doorway, and he never looks away from that doorway, and he's been staring at it, for example. And this was a case that came up in Agassiz, which is just in the Lower Mainland, just outside of Vancouver. And I set up cameras outside the doorway. And as soon as I set up the camera, I turned around and walked away, and the motion camera went off, and I got an apparition coming through the door. And it was the same place as the dog. The dog was totally phased by this one doorway. And I've had that numerous times with cats as well, staring up into corners, that kind of thing as well. And it's been, it's that kind of, it's having that psychic there kind of thing, without having an actual psychic there, on the investigation with that, that vision, that conscious mind vision on what exactly, that non-biased vision on what's going on kind of thing, It's incredible.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That is, oh man, I haven't had an animal. Well, I don't think I have, but I haven't had one do that in my house yet. So I'm definitely kind of glad. But
hey, Sean,
there you go. But I want to say, your first book, I Want to Believe, was definitely an excellent book. I picked it up to do some research on you guys and ended up reading, I think, half the book on the first night. Couldn't put it down. Really good stuff. And I am excited to get my hands on the second one as well.
Yeah, it was definitely, it is a book that we came up with, and to be honest with you, it's never been really done before in relation to the the stories that we got, that kind of thing, from like what you do as well, from actual people that are in the field, rather than the glamorized Hollywood type folk that you see on TV and stuff like that. It's their stories of how they did it, that kind of thing, that kind of pokes us into it. So what are, obviously, with your participation in the paranormal community, what do you think of the what do you think of the term para-unity as such? As that, that a lot of groups and teams use that kind of phrase of para-unity and stuff like that. What are your opinions on that?
Well, when you say para-unity, are you mean like within all these subcultures of the paranormal?
Yeah, it's a common phrase used for paranormal investigators, ghost hunters, and stuff like that about teams working together and uniting against one great cause kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think in the paranormal community, or we can even say, in the para unity, I think it's actually kind of almost like a growing movement right now, especially with a lot of these paracons. Now, one thing that whenever I was talking with like Ken Gerhard was, when you go to a Bigfoot conference, you're going to have people that are there that are into the, ghost side of the paranormal. And then you have people that are on the UFO side of the paranormal. And then you have people that are on like the cryptids and the Bigfoot side of it. And he says, that's all good. But what's not good sometimes is whenever they try to explain one with like another, that there's a Bigfoot UFO connection, or that there's a,
yeah.
or that there's a, and I even heard like the shadow people are really aliens connection. Which
it's like you're moving over to my territory now. Stop it, otherwise I'm gonna punch you in the nose, kind of thing. Yeah, no, I get that.
You can't explain one unknown with another unknown. That's like it's like a double negative. It just doesn't work.
It is funny. Like I know a lot of people. I've interviewed a lot of people on this show and for the books and various other times, and there is like between UFOs and the paranormal side, like ghost hunting and that kind of thing, there is a lot of parallels to the descriptions of what certain probably wrong terminology to use, but UFOologists use for what they see outside with the orbs and stuff like that. And a lot of some of the Aboriginal culture for Sasquatch as well. There's a parallels in that, in like shapeshifters and stuff like that. But I've mentioned it a couple of times, and it's just like, don't step on my territory, young man. I'm gonna kill you. And it's at that breaking point more than anything else. So,
oh yeah, no, but
hello, Jay. Nice to see you, mate.
All right, Jason's watching.
Yeah, I thought he went to the cinema tonight, but that's anyway. Sorry.
He's there. He's like the only one on the show in the cinema.
He is. And there's another.
An un-Hollywood approach. So, in interviewing a lot of these people that do stuff like what Peter and Jason do, they're very passionate about what they do, and it is a very un-Hollywood approach, and it's not glamorous at all. Pete can tell you. I watched your show, We Want to Believe. It's in 15-minute segments, and you guys usually do like the meat part of when you actually get your catches and you're reviewing it. But I mean, a real true ghost investigation or haunting investigation isn't a one night thing, and there isn't stuff that's always moving, and you don't always get EVPs. It's a grueling task that people like Pete, I know y'all did the house investigation in the book, and it was a better part of a year that y'all were working on it, right? Before you actually got credible evidence, and I think you had an apparition that you saw. Yeah, so it's like to take a Hollywood approach, like some of these popular TV shows, where they will grab anything and call it evidence, like an orb shooting into someone's back, and go, oh, see that? It's somebody just touched them because that piece of dust got them, right? I mean, it's the Hollywood approach doesn't really put much scrutiny onto the evidence and onto the situation that these people are going through. Just because there's even you can look at it with paranormal investigations, which includes Bigfoot investigations, UFO investigations. All these people put in a lot of time and effort, and that needs to be appreciated, because it's a lot of times they're people like us. They have wife, kids, they got a full-time job, and a lot of this stuff is they're using their vacation instead of taking it with their family to take a few of these days to go out there and do an investigation, and so that's a lot of your it's a passion, not only a hobby, but definitely a passion. And it's their time, time that they could be spending with their family, that they're putting out there to try to get the evidence, to try to prove that this stuff is tangible and should be researched by the scientific community. I mean, there's countless bits of evidence I'm sure Pete's caught that's unexplainable. I know I've seen countless videos and footprints of Bigfoot, and it still doesn't get a whole lot of recognition. There are definitely some people out there like Pete and the Bigfoot field that put in a lot of time and a lot of effort, 30 plus years, to try to get this stuff to the forefront of research and to try to get it funded. Ken Gerhardt's one of those people as well, Dr. Jeff Meldrum. And then on the UFO side, I mean, these people are watching skies for, nights and nights and nights, just trying to find something.
Reporting no activity is valuable as reporting activity. And pretty much that says it all.
Yep.
So yeah, with us, well, with me, and I think Jason has the same approach as me, or the thought pattern in regard to it. A lot of what we do is obviously catching that big fish at the end of it, but it's also the thrill of the chase, and it's also the places we get to go as well. And it's a lot of it with me is like walking through that piece of history with us, like when we went up to Barkerville the other week and stuff like that. And it's not, it's great when we catch like that EVP, that one EVP for the whole weekend, or we get we caught potentially a picture of an apparition, that kind of thing. But it's just being there and just trying at it and just experimenting at it as well, just moving the goalposts around in relation to how you're trying to achieve data as well. And it's that's what really motivates me more than anything else, is getting to that point and getting to that point one day where not knowing how it's got there, or but potentially why it's there. Maybe we don't know, but you never say never in this field, right?
That's right.
So.
It's almost religious. Sometimes it's just pure faith based.
It is, and it's very like I've had a number of times over the years, like especially when I've lived in BC, where I've attempted to put it down. Like I've just I'm done. I'm going to walk away, and for whatever reason, if I got drama happened and this happened and that, and I'm done with paranormal and stuff like that, but I can't do it, and it's a part of me, and it always will be a part of me. And regardlessly, in about maybe that 5-10 years time, I might give up investigating altogether. But I can't foresee that at the moment. But I'd always be in the background, I'd always be on media sites looking at videos, criticizing the TV shows and stuff like that, and just researching, because that's what I love to do, and that's why I do it, kind of thing. And it's all about the people as well. Like there's like the Kens and the Shannons and stuff like that. These people, the Jasons and the Seans and all the people that I've met doing what I do, the people, the people just make it for me as well. They just add that is the icing on the cake more than anything else.
I want to ask you a question. I know you are big into your research style. You have there it's a Zoom 360. Is that what it is? Your
yeah. I've got Zoom H4S.
Zoom H4. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know something popular that's going around on some of these paranormal investigations is the Estes method. Which was originated in Estes, Colorado. That's why they call that, over at the Stanley Hotel. Yeah,
it's named after a guy called Richard, I believe. It was named after some guy that, was it named after a person, or was it named after a location? I can't remember.
I thought it was named after the location in Estes Park, Colorado.
Oh, okay.
There was a group. Yeah, there was a group that started using it when they were investigating the Stanley. Yeah. Is this, which I find it kind of intriguing, but is this something that you've tried, or do you put any validity to it?
I tried it. Like I tried it even before that was it came out as that method, and it got put onto Google. I tried it a number of years ago with a couple of other experiments, and it's very like we did one investigation where we did a Bigfoot hunt up in just up the road from here, and there were a couple of things that kind of correlated, like the things that I was coming out with, because I was the one with the headphones on, that kind of thing. And there were a couple of comments that I made did correlate to the environment we was in at the time and the questions that were being said in the background that I heard through the airways. So there could potentially be something like that, and with things like with that, and yeah, you never say never. I guess that we should. I can't say for sure because it could just been that particular time, could be a coincidence. But all the other times that I've tried it in the past, it's never really been anything of interest, if that makes sense. So
like nothing, like no like exact answer that would say like, oh yeah, that's exactly,
the problem is you going through radio stations and there could be something coming up, and a complete coincidence to what the question was being asked at that time. And even if you pose your questions to a point where you're after a specific answer, there could be some parallels in relation to that, what comes through to that. It's funny that, like, the questions we ask are very specific, but there's a very very small narration to the responses that should be given in relation to the questions we ask, if that makes sense. And there could be, we're looking for one answer, but there could be multitude of answers that could kind of sit with that as well. So you don't know, and I guess the proof will be in the pudding. If you're in a given experiment where you're asking multiple questions and you're getting continual intelligent answers back, kind of thing, which I've had that with spirit boxes in the past, where I've had that continual data come through. A lot of things that things that we've done in the past with experiments as well. We've had the same interesting data come through, but it's having that consistency, or that the parallel, more than anything else. So.
There you go. Intelligent answers. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're stemming for. And things like the ovulus, that piece of plastic, piece of shit with the microchip inside that spills out the same word over and over again.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound funny. If I was sitting at the end of a phone and I spurted out random words for about 10, 15 minutes, I guarantee you I would at least at one point be talking to your Uncle Fred, who passed away 25,000 years ago, and on a canoe accident, if that makes sense. And it's just you get, again, it's that multitude of names that are going forward, and you eventually get something that you deem as intelligent, but it's actually not, kind of thing. But yeah, I'm just trying to think of the other one we did. Brain's gone dead. Sorry, long week. So we did the one with the oh no, it's gone. Anyway, that's it. Yeah. So no, that's good. So thanks, Cody. I think that's a wrap. Is there any questions in the audience or anything like that before we say goodbye? No. Okay, well, thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we will be back on next week for another exciting show. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.